I want to start with a quote from Anais Nin. And the day came when the risk it took to remain tight in the bud was more painful than the risk it took to blossom. This applies to poetry too. We've been tight in the bud, but poetry is changing. Gone are the classic sensibilities. Gone are the standardized forms and limitations. This restless art has blossomed into new and inventive ways to maintain the music, the diction, the rhythm, the lyricism, the soul of poetry. Here today are Wordkeepers, dedicated to preserving this literary expression. Each week we gather and read and critique our individual works. There is a camaraderie, a spirit that prevails and unites us in this artistic search, an energy of sharing and expanding. We have in common a hard, aching love of this form of literary expression. In this age of digital revolution, we share the anxiety that the love of language may disappear. In our bold and current group think workshop, we are dedicated to keep poetry alive, to embrace the beauty of language in new and unexpected ways. We hope you will feel the craft, feel the passion. You are participating in keeping poetry in blossom. Thank you. Now, in alphabetical order, you will hear from the Wordkeepers. And I do want to thank all of you for coming today. It's a beautiful audience. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon. I want to start out by welcoming everyone here to an afternoon of poetry. I would also like to thank the Rancho Mirage Library and their wonderful, friendly staff for everything that they do, enriching our community with open doors to explore and learn. I am Raymond Chavez, and I come from a family of farm workers and storytellers who celebrated their good fortune around a campfire. My poetry is rooted deep in the human cultural strata. I have no boundaries and certainly no comfort zone. I studied playwriting with the late Yale School of Drama professor, Dr. Frederick Thon. Also at UCLA's School of Writing and South Coast Repertory Theater in Costa Mesa. And now with esteemed Rancho Mirage Poet Laureate, Dorothea Bisbas, who shares her gift of words, inspiring us to become poets driven with passion to create, to take listeners to new places. This is the power of the written word. Theaters have produced my plays, including schools. My poetry has taken me to New York's legendary Nuyorican Poets Cafe, to the stage where Allen Ginsberg performed. I also opened for the first Latino United States Poet Laureate, Juan Felipe Herrera, at a cancer benefit for a young child. And recently participating at the iconic The Last Bookstore in Los Angeles for a poetry reading. The poems that I will be reciting today revolve around a young boy, me, in the 1950s, and moments I experienced with mi abuelito, my grandfather, Jose Munoz, who was born in 1874 in Chihuahua, Mexico. And before I go into my first poem, I'm going to share something with all of you. When I was little, I was beyond a handful. My parents couldn't control me. My father turned me into to the police at age 5. I was a free spirit. No, did not register. So, my first poem. El Terrible. Before El Chapo, there was me, El Terrible. I was born on a very hot day, June 12, 1950, on the east side, in the Browntown section of Indio. When I arrived, all 6 pounds of me, there was a celebration, a fiesta, for a beautiful baby boy from heaven, white as the clouds, my free pass to a better life. I wore the nickname Angel, like wings. I did not look like my cousins. Soon jealous whispers stripped away my feathers. The rumor I was El Niño del Lechero, the milkman's boy. And just like that, from angel to bastard, a harsh transition. The first of many labels attached to me. I wore my given name Raymond like a bandage, covering a never-healing cut. Every name that followed ripped the scab from my sensitive being, thickening my skin. Cabezón, because I was hard-headed, a free spirit in search of adventure and mischief. Diablito, little devil boy, full of fire. My family prayed for me day and night. I did not like reading from the Bible, nor singing church hymns with mi abuelita. El Terrible, because I was terrible, but with a good heart that would not give up on me in life. My last poem, A Half Moon. Mi abuelito enters the family fiesta. Each of his steps turns heads. It is easier for him to be mean. He scares me, yet I'm drawn to him. He talked to the voices in his head. I listened and fantasized. A pistolero, long ago, riding with Pancho Villa, burying gold across desert wasteland, ready to shoot if you are a federale. Take dinero and food from sprawling haciendas, giving back to poor hungry peasants. A hard day's ride in the saddle, eased by amber-colored tequila. A woman in every village eager to satisfy. His dust-covered face washed clean by kisses reserved for a hero fighting in the Mexican Revolution. He would stare at me from across the room, motion with a slight nod to come. Mama pushes me from behind. Papa gives me the look. Los hombres no lloran. Men don't cry. I am just a young boy. Abuelita encourages me with a smile. Never want to hug or show emotion, he extends his right hand. I nervously reach out, ready myself. He buries his long thumbnail deep between my little thumb and finger. A test, looking for weakness, a tear, a grimace of pain. I stare back with disdain. He rustles my hair with approval. He sees himself in me and sends me on my way. Mi abuelito never sees my tears as I walk back alone, cut deep into my little hand, a half moon. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome. My name is Lin D Turk, and I have been a member of the Wordkeepers for the last 6 years. Last spring, I moved away from the valley, and I went to the Santa Cruz area, and I cannot tell you how thankful I am to Dorothea, who prepared me so well to take my poetry out into the world, because it's been very successful there. Today I will be reading several poems. The first is the keynote poem from my book, An Ode to Newfoundland, which was published by Cave Moon Press in October of this year. It can be found on the sale table, and it needs to be noted that all the proceeds are being donated to the Refugee and Immigrant Advisory Council of Newfoundland and Labrador, and they are accepting Syrian refugees, something that our country is not doing. My first poem is titled, Heading Inland, Going Home. Heading inland, going home. Tonight, shivers with a loon's call, staccato trill silhouetted against the shimmer of a moonlit sea. Its hollow, one-note sound, a woodsy vibrato that bends, skims across the evening tide, echoes off barren cliffs. Each throaty vibration, like a handful of pebbles, cast into the wind and falling scattered to the ground. Sound drops down over the gesturing arms of spruces, lands soft muffled in the sharp scent of peat. Then the bird reaches out, wings held wide, feet skitter against the lake's surface, raising a wake of foam. And he, at the apex of the V, straight as an arrow's flight, heads to the warmth of nest, and we are all home. The next poem is new work. It's something I wrote while the fires were burning. And it's titled, I'll Meet You on the Beach When the Sky Burns Red. Nothing but blackness so far, though the morning is crisp, carrying a slight scent of wood smoke. Anxiety wraps its fingers about my heart and squeezes. The calendar shows it's fire season. The Santa Ana's gust hot, singeing my skin and the paper-dry grasses. Fires are north and south of us. Last night, TV screens flashed bright with an insanity of flames. News stations introduced us to a screaming chaos of sirens. It was before the electricity went out. Once verdant and lush, now mid-coast vegetation is the collection of dying plants and trees that erupt like roadside bombs. Exploding eucalyptus shoot shrapnel from one hilltop to the next, crimson cinders that light in the matchless majesty of the redwoods. The world is all tinder. I know about fire's avarice, the way it leaves nothing untouched. We wait in dread, gaze skyward, searching for the first thin scrim of brown, that translucent ribbon of smoke snaking high across the sky. Fear litters the ground we walk upon. Our car is parked roadside, gas tank full. Your backpack is stuffed with water and tinned food. The cat wears a harness and identification tags. Though prepared, we will never be ready. Late afternoon, we walk the beach holding hands, look east toward the still green mountains, imagine them charred and smoking. We know any evacuation will choke with traffic and many will be left behind. Wind blows over us, sun lowering through a hot pink sky. Heads close together, our voices raised above the gusts, we discuss a specific spot out toward the water's edge. Here, I say, and dig my toes deep into the sand. We'll meet here. Thank you.
Let us see if... Is this working? Good, yes. So good afternoon. My name is Maureen Dougherty, and I have just... Oh, good. Well, one way of sorting that. Let's do it this way. My name is Maureen Dougherty, and I have just returned to the desert from my home in Ireland. I was hoping to leave the rain behind, but I'm afraid it followed me. Someone once said we write to put our obsessions in order, and I'm inclined to agree with that. When I retired from my day job as a physician, a child psychiatrist, I hoped to move in a different way of writing. But I found my obsessions followed me, and my voice reverted to my preoccupation with human nature and what it takes to hold body and soul together. I owe a debt of gratitude to Dorothea, who's a master of the kind of generativity that weaves poetry into our lives. I want to thank her for her steadfast guidance of her merry band of Wordkeepers, those who aspire to weave life into poetry. So I'm going to read two poems from our recently published anthology. The first one is Tea and Talk, a poem inspired by the philosopher Emil Cioran, who observed that the two most interesting things in life are metaphysics and gossip. Tea and Talk. I penned this poem with a question to be answered in the fullness of time, for I would dearly like to know what will happen to the gossipy talk, beloved of my generation, when AI operatives, artificial intelligence, surpasses our modest wit. I fear a future world will not know that back in our day, a little bag of tea brewed a ceremony of talk, small talk, all talk, about truths more giving than measly facts. Will history simply say those tete-a-tete were a derangement of our time, an existential ache relieved by searching amongst the leafy dregs for portents of some future fate? But my question for generations yet to come is not if AI won the day, or if personhood was granted to these alexithymic machines. I just want to know, did Alexa ever learn to suffer or ease the pain of human isolation? My second poem is somewhat of a companion piece, and it's titled Intersubjective Grace. You will never know the wherefores that move the treadles of my mind, and I will never know what it is or was that makes you repeat yourself. And when I listen, did you know I think about the meaning your words might have for you, but judge them by the meaning they have for me, hoping you and I can be of one mind. Do you, like me, search for a glossary of grace, words to lessen the loneliness of the hope that limbers the heart with its promise of sublime understanding? Absent a common prayer, we search for kindness between the lines of human discourse. Is it hubris to suppose a few poetic words, punctiliously chosen, might approach his sublime rendering? And before I go, just a small correction for those who purchased the anthology. The Henry James quote in the poem A Tidal Bore was from 1914, referring to the First World War. 1941 is a mistype. So thank you all, and may the road rise to meet you and the wind be at your back at this celebration time.
Southern California, born and bred. I am Joanne Gill. In 2003, I retired early from teaching secondary education in Palm Springs Unified School District, as well as a required upper division psychology class at Cal State San Bernardino Palm Desert campus. I have been blessed to explore the 6 of the 7 continents, learning about people, customs, and histories of many cultures. I also, through these travels, found Dorothea, and that was a true blessing for me because she has helped open up my poetry and improved my prose, which was something that came a little easier. Today, I'll share 2 poems that talk about the experiences of some of my travels. Morocco, North Africa, a country that's geographically so much like California. In the west, they have a giant, beautiful ocean. Like we have our Pacific, theirs is the Atlantic. In the east, they have, oh my gosh, the Atlas Mountains that run a parallel along their border, like our Sierras. And of course, they have date palms and a vast desert, the Sahara. The first poem I'll share is an experience I had one late afternoon while in Morocco. Berber voices whisper in the late afternoon. Shadows drift across powdered sugar sand. Footprints show my passage. Blinking her long lashes, she beckons me. I climb the crimson-covered camel's back. Warm wind swirls my hair. No saddle, no stirrups. Sweaty hands, slick, grasp the metal shoulder handle. Like Indiana Jones, the adventure begins, up and down over the Sahara dunes toward the setting sun. Let's travel north, thousands of miles, toward the Arctic Circle, to a small island country, Iceland. with a tiny, smaller populated island off its southern borders. This smaller island is where my Viking ancestors first landed and explored before moving on to Iceland. This poem reflects my heritage as Norway presented the island with a replica of their first Christian stave church that was established over 1,000 years ago on the homeland. Hime, Iceland, North Atlantic Isle. Dark waves beat like the strike of a club upon the black shore. Brooding volcanic cliffs tower as archaic warriors. Rain pours from heaven's cauldron. My pants and jacket pelted, drenched, I continue my quest. Slick wooden steps beckon. No OSHA, no handrails. With a deep breath, I climb. Viking ancestors call. Come, celebrate 1,000 years. Old gods remain, hidden beneath the Christian God. Heliotrope clouds disappear. Bright sunlight streaks the sky, illuminating Norwegian stave church. Humbled, I touched the ancient gnarled door. I am also a shill for our anthology, and the last poem is included in my selections that are printed in it. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ruth Hill, and I thank you, all of you, for coming today and listening to the poetry of the Wordkeepers. I'm a professional nurse, poet, and writer. Born and bred in Connecticut, I transplanted to California in the 80s, following my mom, my dad, and my sister. After my retirement from hospice and home health, I had the opportunity to add the science of cannabis to my palliative care toolbox. Now I consult, lecture, and write about medical cannabis and end-of-life issues. Currently, I'm a contributor to the Coachella Valley Weekly, joining the tutelage of Dorothea's poetry group 3 years ago. My writing expertise advanced to an order of magnitude that even I didn't expect. There's a waiting list to join us, so if any of you want to come and be part of us, you better get on the list, because none of us are leaving soon. My first poem is on page 51, if you happen to have bought one of these. And it's about when I was working in a hospice organization with one of my peers, my colleagues, who was pretty hard on me. And she was so hard on me that when the hospice closed and I didn't see from her or hear from her for quite a few years, I was shocked with what the story I'm going to tell you in this poem. Donna's request. Unable to hide her illness anymore, Donna pleads with her sisters to find me. News arrives with sorrow and shock when I learn she has only weeks to live. She was my boss, who left thorns embedded in my heart from constant criticism honing my skills. The smell of death bleeds into the air, flak jacket ready to repel her quiver of pointed retorts. Her ashen face, sunken cheekbones, speak an agony that melts the sting in my heart. With humility, I regain composure, honored to midwife her death. My second poem, on page 53, if you want to read along, is an experience that I'm sure all of you have had with a relative or a close friend or a loved one. And it's called I Know the Exact Time. And there was a time before I came to California when I had to figure out how was I going to move out here. And it was very difficult to figure that out, moving all across the country with my two kids, being a single parent. So I found a job that I might have an interview with. So this is the story of that time. I Know the Exact Time is the name of it. Beach fire embers sparkle in the air as I walk down the hill, letting the fish smell tickle my nostrils and flavors with burnt hot dogs. I seek the ocean calm at Capo Beach to dissolve my guilt. I left behind my dying brother to the care of my mother. She pushed me to accept my dream job. Let go of your fear of change. Go, go, she implored me. I'll take care of Bob. A gazebo draws me in to sit as the last arc of the sun passes beneath the sea. A light movement of lavender spikes my veins. My brother is saying goodbye. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Roger Horton, and I've, for over 25 years, I was a farmer of grapes and vegetables down in Thermal, and now I run a commercial janitorial company and write poems. And I've been writing poems for a number of years, and for most of that time, there was the issue of, a tremendous quantity, but questionable quality. And so then 2 years ago, I was lucky enough to be invited to join the Wordkeepers, and it really spurs you on when you are encouraged, and when you read your poems and they are critiqued by such a group of accomplished poets, and especially by the poet laureate of Rancho, Mirage, Dorothea Bisbas. So now the quality is creeping in an upward trajectory, but you'll have to be the judge. When you're a member of a poetry workshop, you learn lots of new terminology. And one of those terms has been obad. Now, an obad is a poem that extols the morning or the dawn. And my first poem is titled Obad. Obad, Sunday morning, the first of undaylight savings time, and what bliss to fall back and sleep another hour, yet still get up before sunrise, pull on your warm flannel shirt and your jeans with legs like planks. Then, slowly, your socks and shoes, because your mind's always diverted at this point and tends to wander the trails before you take them. The dog licks your knuckles as you tie your shoes, nuzzles your knee, and looks up at you with dark bubble eyes of sweet adoration while smelling like the inside of a trash can in summer. It's not her fault. The charcoal biscuits the vet recommends likely come tomorrow. And the older, bigger dog doesn't seem to mind, so you decide to take your cue from him. Then there's this brightening day to tend to. This next poem is titled Reading a Poem by Mary Oliver. As part of your early morning practice, you pull the anthology from its shelf, open it at random, but towards the back third, and there's your old friend smiling warmly, wanting to walk with you, yet willing to sit at your table and share a coffee, which she takes black as well. She scoots her chair up close beside you, reaches over and turns the page to Wild Geese. You close your eyes as she begins to read. The soft animal of your body inhales the glad, sad wholeness of her words and sees suns in the clear pebbles of the rain. Now sends your spirit out over all the earth. Slowly, when her speaking ends, you open your eyes and returned to yourself.
Hello, everyone. I think I've shrunk Dorothea. My name is Gary Hunter, and this is our first time reading in this room, and I must say, I like this sort of circular. I think it turned out pretty good. Yeah, thank you. I grow mangoes, and I also play pickleball, and I also do poetry. So that's a little of my background. I have a rock in front of my house where I post a daily poem, and I call it Poetry Rock, and it's been going on, I'm starting my 5th year. So I've been a little busy the last few years. All right, so my poems are also based, like Joanne's, on my travels. The first one is a trip we took to China. And you know, they have a lot of vendors in China. Every time you come out of a shop or, you know, in the middle of a tour or whatever, they're always running up to you. So this first poem is a poem about a vendor that we met. Selling fans in old Shanghai. We exit the museum and she approaches. Hair snowy white, whipping back and forth in a shifting breeze. Eyes clear as an empty sky. Face the color of moist earth, and skin cracked like old porcelain. She bends over what looks to be a pile of chopsticks, pulls out a pair, and spreads them to reveal a smiling panda fan, and waves it rapidly in my face. I reach over and with matching vigor, fan her face with my program. She wraps my knuckles with her merchandise and smiles with both teeth. I peck her cheek once, slip her 10 yuan, and turn to leave with my Chinese trinket. As I'm going, she grabs my arm and pulls me close, lays her head on my shoulder, and holds me tight. I relax and give her all the time she needs, because I don't want to let go either. Thank you. True story. My second poem is from a trip to Egypt. We were on a tour that went to a farm. They actually have farms in Egypt. And they had grown, it was a cell phone farm. No, it was a farm of corn and millet, and they have a very primitive version of our silo, you know, the metal thing. Well, theirs was like an old wooden thing. And outside the silo, I found a teacup that had been smashed. And it just got my imagination going, so I thought I would write a story about the teacup and its life. So most of this poem is written from the voice of the teacup. Inside the darkness of the granary floor, a teacup speaks to a ray of moonlight. My story began in drawing rooms of smoke and tired sighs, those sitting rooms where boredom leaned on poorly dusted books, and sunrooms where my tea slid over the teeth of lies and morning tea cake, and in the bedrooms of lonely souls where cold lips rarely took my service. So many places where I felt empty, held too loosely, never cupped for my gift. Nowhere there did I belong. Then fate let me slip from a hand. See the assembly of my pieces now, so poorly pasted, I became an embarrassment to my kind, and was donated to labor here for the poor and the rough-handed. Left with one sharp chip that could cut, these baggers of corn and millet still passed me around eagerly for gritty sips, sometimes while sitting in the circular gloom of this place. This is my life now, in the dirt with strangers, leaning into their stories, tragic chapters, funny moments, and faraway dreams, knowing I only hold a hot brew, but so grateful, adding a sweetness I doubt is even noticed. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Valerie Man, and I've been a part of the Wordkeepers for several years, and I must say it's the best thing that ever happened to me, thanks to Dorothea, who has created an environment of love and compassion. It's not just writing poetry. We all have feelings for one another, and it's just a special place. So I'm grateful for that. I spent most of my years working in corporate America for AT&T in publicity, public relations. I was involved in a speakers program where I gave a speech on the history of the San Fernando Valley to different groups and organizations for several years before I retired. So now, being able to be a part of this wonderful group has filled a gap, and it's a special, special time for me. Today I'm going to read two poems, and the first one is about a place that my husband and I visited frequently when we lived in Florida. It was an out-of-the-way hideaway, away from all the luxury and the fol-de-rol that goes with the beach in Florida. So we were lucky to find this place, and we returned every time we could. And it's called All That Remains. There's something sad about going back to a place you have longed to return to and not find it. The Half Moon Beach Club on Lido Isle, a shore side clapboard inn, gone, raised and buried, beneath layers of sand and debris. Gone are the green canvas chairs where guests gathered at sunset with buckets of ice-chilled stems and uncorked bottles. Gone, the cross-table chatter between strangers at poolside, just needing someone to talk to and won't remember names or faces. Gone, a place to pretend that you are who you aren't and no one will ever know. Sealed now from the world, behind steel cyclone fencing, a bold sign, future sight, high-rise beachfront condos. I listen to the sound of the evening tide rush in and slowly recede, taking chunks of yesterday out to sea. The second poem I'm going to read, I was inspired to write this from driving along the freeway during pumpkin time, and there were pumpkin patches everywhere. So when I put my mind to it, I had to think about these pumpkin patches and these pumpkins. So my poem is called Through Mismatched Eyes. I sit here clinging to Mother Earth in this pumpkin patch. Suddenly, a young boy in tattered blue jeans leans in, wraps his arms around my middle, breathlessly tugs, pulls me away from the crowded cluster of fellow pumpkins. A small pocket knife in his grimy little hand cuts my head off, scoops my insides. I tremble, he giggles. The sharp blade continues to attack me. Mismatched eyes, crooked mouth, random jagged teeth. He shoves a stick down my throat, lights the tip. I begin to glow. This is what I was born for.
Good afternoon. My name is Terry Mirage. Whoops, sorry. Good afternoon. I loved you, Gary. Good afternoon. My name is Terry Mirage, a native New Yorker. Since 1962, I've lived in California. I sculpt and paint, and now I'm learning how to write poetry. To be learning is to be learning something new every day, or whenever I can. I always want to be learning. We are here because of poet Dorothea Bisbas. She has formed this class and with great patience and love teaches the art of poetry. There is much to learn about poetry. And speaking for myself, in any given day, I might experience different moods, so I write about them. Thank you, Dorothea. These are poems of observation. This poem was inspired by visiting a wood carving class. It's titled Spirit of the Woodworker. He sits in his shop, studies cuts of cherry wood that lay in front of him. He notes the beautiful grain and breathes in its sweet aroma. Wonders how long ago this wood was part of a living tree. Where was it growing before it was harvested? In an open field or in a wooded forest among other trees? Was it planted long ago on a farm that may no longer be? Or did it grow wild on a hillside? He wonders if children enjoyed the cherries, juice running down their cheeks and onto their clothes. Did lovers caress under its blossoms on moonlit nights? How many storms had it endured during its lifetime? He thinks, what will he carve that will honor the soul of this tree? Whatever, he knows it will have his complete attention and respect. In his hands, he holds the spirit of the wood. Thank you. This is a little different. Years back, I volunteered in a local hospital where my brother-in-law was a psychiatrist. And so he assigned me to the crafts room. This poem is written about one of the patients that I worked with, her fantasy life. Her mind, a prison of insanity. Her brain in neon colors lit up her dull gray room. Breezes through the window called her to dance, blew her skirt to twirl, and teased her hips to dance a dance her body free to do. She sang and screeched for all to hear. Let the breezes blow. Come, she asked, dance with me, though she was alone. Brief moments of clarity found her lost in worry. Fearful she had come to where she could not leave. Her clarity is over and returns her insane self. Breezes through the window blew her skirt to twirl that teased her hips to dance the dance her body free to do in her prison of insanity. Thank you.
Hi, Alan Plum is my name. I'm a writer and director for film and television. I also write children's books. If you're a devotee of B movies, you might have seen one of mine. If you only go to tentpole movies, you wouldn't have. 10 years ago, I was adopted by a dog who was 5 years old. The time has come for him to say goodbye. It's not many more months that I think he has to live. These next words are in honor of all that he has taught to me. The barren and the night sky. A star falls near the baron's nose, wakes him, not unfamiliar with a bit of heaven. He reaches out, nips its nearest point, draws the light closer, takes it to his mouth, where it glows bright as the sun from beneath his smile. Tossing his head, he launches it skyward, gives it back to the night. There is in Buddhism and in Zen an aesthetic called wabi-sabi. It's based upon the idea that in the broken and in the imperfect, there's beauty, and that all is impermanence. This is a poem devoted to that philosophy. Wabi-sabi. Before the letters fell, the page was empty. White sky waiting upon dark clouds. All that's new emerges from nothing. This poem is imperfect. This poem is incomplete. This poem will disappear, as all things do. It will never be greater than the moment of its becoming. The empty space of the page, one quiet word emerges. The silence of morning, broken. Thank you.
Catherine with a C. Hi, I'm Tom Robertson. I've been a member of Wordkeepers about 3 years. Like other members, serendipity put me in the right place at the right time, and to meet our gifted poet laureate, Dorothea Bisbas. I need to say this early on, too, that I am Dorothea's favorite. One of the first pieces of advice that I remember Dorothea giving was that if you want the reader or listener to connect with your poetry, make it authentic. Write about the things you know about. Be real. Write about those things that have shaped your life. So I'm going to tell you about a couple of things I know about. I know about growing up in a blue-collar family. My father, a gardener, my mother, a waitress, on Section 14 of the Agua Caliente Reservation in the late 1940s and the 1950s. This was a time before the glamour of the spa hotel and the casino, when the streets were of dirt and the houses were wooden tar paper shanties, shelter for families of Latinos, Native Americans, African Americans, and a few white families like mine. The days when Indian Canyon Drive was the border between privilege and poverty. I also know about being a firefighter for 32 years and going from rookie firefighter to fire chief in the process. For the most part, my poetry is informed by these experiences. And it is these experiences that are the inspiration for the two poems that I will offer you now. Just a little backstory on the first poem. I told you that my father was a gardener. In 1955, he hired a man by the name of Herbert Carter, a black man from Bessemer, Alabama. And Herbert was probably around 35, 40. And we quickly became bonded over a common enemy, my father. And Herbert took me under his wing and gave me some wonderful experiences in his world. The first poem is about one of these experiences. Saturdays at the Stump. On those summer Saturday nights in 1955, Herbert Carter took 15-year-old me to the stump. Took me to the spot where the folk south of Lacey Road crowded in, singing, shouting, stomping, and being real. That shotgun shack of nails, wood, and paper set next to a big cottonwood stump was all about drinking, dancing, and fighting to the sounds of Delta blues streaming from the house band. They came in shiny Detroit steel, big men with rough hands and hard faces, styling in their brims and Stacey Adams, wearing women with big hair and low expectations on their arms. They squeezed into that tin-roof tar paper shack where cigarette smoke rolled like blue fog, the air thick with the smells of fried fish, yesterday's beer, perfume bought by the jug. It had a life, a beating heart of its own, the rolling thrum of Porkchop Parker's Gibson, wailing like a witness to every slur, every pain, every broken promise. It was a place to fight over a good woman or a sorry man, a place to drink cheap gin till a wedding vow became a suggestion, a place where all of them, cesspool diggers, maids and gardeners, could forget for a bit they were selling their lives by the hour. The next poem is based on my firefighting years and how the job of firefighter, the job as we call it, the brotherhood, as great as it was, and it really was great, had some significant downsides. At first it was hard to erase the image of a woman's face falling apart as she told me how she awoke to find the aroma of coffee missing, the husband beside her, cool to her touch. It was hard to see without sadness the chaplain and battalion chief standing under a dim porch light, talking in low voices with a robed woman who shook her head, no, 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 as she became smaller. Then I learned in the firehouse that feelings were a weakness worn by women, unwelcome, unwanted, unspoken. I chose isolation over intimacy, cynicism over compassion, and call after call, it became easier. The numbed, red strobe faces of a family huddled together, their history hissing under boots and hoses, became only a fact, no longer a feeling. Finally, so good at being calm in crisis and chaos, keeping emotion in a box disguised as noble work, heroic acts, I watched the woman I loved softly lock the door to her heart and leave. And I was alone. Thanks.
Hi, everyone. I'm Catherine Stanley, and this is a fabulous audience. For the sake of brevity, very briefly, my whole life has been spent in words. I have a degree in journalism. I've been an editor. I've worked in publishing. I've done a lot of playwriting, screenwriting. But my discovery in the last few years was this lovely lady here and her poetry group, because it honed everything down to this discipline. Every single word, which you've heard today, has meaning. There's no waste. It's different than other types of writing, so I hope you're enjoying the afternoon. My poem, not surprisingly, is called My Affair with Words. Words that soar above an orchestra, stirring all imagination until blending softly into harmonic thoughts. Words that dance delicately between religion and philosophy, speaking truths. Words that accessorize a sentence, models in haute couture, strutting and swaying down verbal runways. Words that stun the reader, causing an abrupt revelation of ideas. Words that smooth and enlighten a troubled soul while tears evaporate onto paper. Words that move me until there is nothing left but silence. And on a lighter moment, perhaps, this is a reflection on a trip I took after college with my girlfriends off to Europe to conquer the world, like so many people that we didn't. It's called Dr. Zhivago on the Champs-Élysées. Paris glittered and gleamed in the summer of '68, flaunting fashion, a city accessorized with white gloves and stiletto heels. Champs-Élysées, her runway, expansive shops, endless parades, people strolling, chatting in wonderful, evocative tones. We sat that afternoon, my friends and I, drinking champagne, smoking long, thin French cigarettes, held pretentiously, ordering croissants in Anglo-French accents, hiding Birkenstocks under the table. We leaned back, feeling almost glamorous. Suddenly, in a moment that startled, he appeared, walking toward us. Crisp, white linen, luminous against olive skin, dark, warm, familiar eyes. He turned, looked over, smiling, then was gone. Feigning nonchalance, we stared speechless. Omar Sharif, Paris, the cafe, we reveled in our sophistication. We knew then that Paris glittered and gleamed in the summer of '68. Thank you.
Good afternoon, I'm Bernard Sergel. In 2009, on a lark, I attended Dorothea's master poetry class and have done so ever since. Because of Dorothea's amazing teaching skills and unwavering commitment to poetry, she turned me, a 94-year-old retiree, into a published poet with 3 poetry books to his credit. This afternoon, I will read a poem from 2 of my books. If you're interested in reading more of my work, the books are available at the table at the rear of the room, monitored by my girlfriend, Lin D Turk. I had to give her that plug or she'd have a headache tonight. The first book, published in 2014, now in its 3rd printing, is titled Recollections of World War II in Poetry, and the most recent book, published in June of this year, is titled The Dancing Years, 1920 to 2020 plus. So we'll go back in time now to the Philippine Islands, the Lady Island, October 20, 1944. There should be nothing here I don't remember, after Richard Blanco. Deafening salvo startle. Scarlet flashes follow. Midnight sky blazes. Gunpowder pollutes. Putrid smoke chokes. A somber chaplain paces the deck. Soldier, would you like to pray? An atheist, I stay silent until morning light outlines the island in flames. Overhead, missiles whistle, shock waves swiftly follow, awe resolves to reflection. It's my 19th October, Will there be more? Time to disembark. I straddle the ship railing, grasp the cargo netting. Hemp rung sting my fingers, hemp rung sag beneath my boots. Once the LST fills, like a pelican bursting free of the sea, we lunge towards Leyte. Silently I do my drill, reach the beach, find a dune, aim, shoot, advance, repeat. When suddenly violent vibrations shake our craft to a halt. The coxswain yells, we're stuck on a freaking reef. We're sitting ducks, abandoned ship, loaded with gear. A very deep breath, I jump boot first into Leyte Gulf. There should be nothing here I don't remember. Plummeting like a stone, I discard gear, loath to see belongings disappear. As unlaced boots fall away, lungs on empty scream oxygen. Surfacing in the midst of naval debris, nose, mouth, ears, clogged with gasoline-tainted salt water, I swim towards Palo Beach in waterlogged fatigues, sapping my strength. Not sure I have enough left. I throw caution aside when a gasoline drum floats by. Despite risk of shrapnel hits, I hold on until drill kicks and reach the beach. Relieved bare feet finally feel sand. I wade to shore, collapse at the tide line, momentarily rest, refocus, find new gear. Amid deafening explosions, bullets everywhere. There should be nothing here I don't remember. Japanese artillery, relentless, spray the shoreline, the waters beyond. US battleships retaliate. Sky fills with missiles, detonations pound, shockwaves pummel, mayhem prevails. In oil-stained, sand-caked, soggy fatigues, I slither along the beach, reach a GI behind the dune, find he's dead, shot through the head. Like a trapped deer, I momentarily freeze. Eager to crawl away, find another sandbank. A hail of bullets forces me back. Resigned, I lie aside the dead soldier, squeamish, sick to my stomach, mouth full of bile. Sun temporarily comforts until a stench unlike anything smelled before induces gagging, forces me to spit up death's reek, war's stink. Despite my haze, I retrieve his carbine, his helmet, undo his backpack, freeing his web belt, accidentally rolls him face up. His eyes open, turn mine away. Sorry about that, folks. I glance at his books, ambivalent, unlace them, slip my bare feet into where his once fit. Is donning a dead man's gear desecration? Civilian me, guilty. Soldier me, expediency. There should be nothing here I don't remember. As shouts of medic compete with cacophony, pinned behind a dune, aside a body wreaking death. Anxiety turns to anguish, to prayer. Grandpa in heaven, please save me. I don't want to die like this. When he appears, haloed in soft amber light, my adrenal flow, thumping heart, labored breathing slowly subsides as stillness builds, panic recedes, until the sound of approaching aircraft from the sinking carrier, the USS Princeton, breaks the trance, leaving me to reconsider my atheistic convictions, childlike language. With GI scattered amid the sand, planes with no place to land join the fray, break the impasse. Flying on empty, they crash atop trees. 2 survive, the rest of the squadron dies. There should be nothing here we ever forget. In the dancing years, I'll start at the beginning for me. The dancing years, 1920 to 1929. I'll say, yes, sir, that's my baby. No, sir, I don't mean maybe. Yes, sir, that's my baby now. It's the roaring 20s. Innovation is inundating the nation. What a wonderful time to be born. Coal is the soul that keeps factories spewing. Electricity explains why city nights are bright. Everybody stops to listen when the radio speaks. Flappers are dancing the Charleston. Women can vote. Motion pictures can talk. Speakeasies serve what prohibition prohibits. Mama's a Gibson girl. Bob's her hair. Wears makeup. Smokes. Papa has a job. It pays $25 a week. Affords them a Ford car. Harlem's Renaissance to Duke Ellington. Compose your Black American experience in jazz. To Langston Hughes. Narrate your Black experience with poetry. October 29, 1929. Stock market crashes. What was once light and gay suddenly fades away. I thank you all.
And I am the last, because my name is Paula Young, and when your last name starts with a Y, you tend to be at the bottom of the line. I have been with Dorothea for 3 years, as have a lot of the people who've talked to you from up here. And everything that everyone has said about Dorothea is spot on. She is everything that she has been praised for being, and she's more than that. But I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, if it weren't for this library, none of us would be here. This library is just a blessing to everyone. It is. It truly, truly is. And I, for one, am grateful to be here. I grew up in the East Coast, the Atlantic Ocean. My husband and I moved out here 12 years ago in retirement, and we found a home. And now I've found a home with Wordkeepers in the library. Ray was the one who started off telling about his grandfather. And I'm going to tell you about my grandfather, who also was born in the 1800s, but not here in this part of the country. He was born on the New England coast. And he grew up in an orphanage. And when he was 10 years old, he decided to run away from the orphanage and figure out what he could do in life. And he became a merchant seaman. He lied about his age. And from there, being a merchant seaman, he wound up fighting in the Spanish-American War. It wasn't a long war, but he was young, and it was his first war, and that kind of made the trajectory of his life. He was in and out of the Navy for his whole life. He also was back in active duty for World War I, World War II, and the Korean conflict. Not fighting out in the field, but doing math and sciencey stuff as a strategist. I don't know, wherever military people do those things. But that experience gave him a profound sense of patriotism. And his symbol of patriotism was the American flag. The American flag to him was everything, to the point where it became a family joke, because no matter what the occasion, Grandpa would insert an American flag in it. Halloween, Christmas, christenings, birthday, you always knew that if Grandpa was coming, there would be an American flag. So my first poem is about Flag Day in 1941. And the place is Annapolis, Maryland. And it's about my father and my grandfather. He awoke to the ringing of a telephone. His father was on the line. "Good morning, son. Do you know what day this is?" Of course I do, Dad. It's my wedding day. No, son, not that. It's Flag Day. I'll see you at the church. I'm bringing flags. He did bring flags, lots of them. As the happy couple exited the cathedral, under an archway of swords held aloft by newly minted naval officers, any guest not in a military uniform was happily waving a handheld flag, supplied by my grandfather. The photographs are black and white, but it's easy to imagine all the red, white, and blue. And my second poem, which is actually the last poem in the book, because the book was done alphabetically, just like we're all here today. So this is my last poem, and the last poem of all of them. It's called Real Poetry, and to me it's about life in the desert and what poetry is all about. The rainstorm was loud, the aftermath so quiet. I peeked out and found Calliandra puffs nestled in the bright green hedge, enjoying a breeze. Yellow butterflies flitting flower to flower, sampling the buffet. Twinkling puddles reflecting rays of sunshine after the cloudburst. Each part of nature happy to greet a new day in our wet desert. Because real life poetry is not written on paper or found in a book. Thank you.
I guess you can tell we have a lot of fun. We're all so individual, and we bring specialties to the Wednesday event, well, I'll call it. It's a wonderful group. I'm happy to be its leader, but really I'm its follower. I love it as much as they do. To end the program, I'll read a couple of my poems for you. The first one is called Put Your Glasses On, Dorothea. From my window, watching. Morning. Desert sun casts its orange light on the tiny nest built with bits of instinct, spider threads and twigs. Yesterday, she fussed and fluttered. Today, she has settled into parent, warming the minuscule eggs, guarding her legacy. Hummingbird, you have joined the cosmos of mothers. My breath and yours warm the earth. We keep safe all the tomorrows, all the unhatched ideas. We are the origin of words. We are the language of inclusion. The pane of glass becomes a mirror. I watch myself lest I cause fear. You sense my sisterhood of love. We do not ignore each other. I don't want to forget to thank our lovely harpist who has played wonderful. She's been with us on many occasions, and I'm always so excited when she can come because it's the perfect backdrop for poetry. You know, by the end of the program, we'll all know where this thing belongs. This poem is called Closet Chronicles. The past is present here among the scented cedar chips, events in my life on hangers, silk, cotton, wool, leathers shaped to the streets where I've traveled, peripatetic boots and flip-flops, a row of history on my closet floor. That summer at Centrum, Mount Rainier in every eye, days damp with chill as penetrating as fear, I bought a sweater. Cashmere, they said, at the Port Townsend boutique, shivering in a Marvin Bell workshop. A blizzard couldn't keep me from. He taught me the Greek poets, Cavafy, Saphiris, Elatis, to love being Greek, to be Greek in my poetry. Another time, our motorhome strapped to a rail car flatbed, traveling hundreds of miles through Mexican Sierras, through tunnels so long and dark, I lost a sense of where my body was, in the utter blackness, darker than even the other side of me. Ah, there's more. In Chihuahua, I bought a poncho. Alpaca, they said, a warm, hippie 70s look I still can't give away. It takes me to a place my mirror has long ago forgotten. There are clothes that go nowhere, chosen for a life I don't have. Pretty party chiffon frills for operas and ballets that don't exist. Tags hanging expectantly from sleeves. This muumuu is nothing I would wear now. Wild hibiscus spreading vines on a pink field, loosely pleated. It sways whenever I open the closet door, the way the water shimmered over the hotel pool, the mosaic orchids blushing on the night we made love in Hanley Bay. Everything speaks to me. Remember this, remember this. An atlas of fabric draped to contain time, a scrapbook in a box I can enter and go again and again to the places I love. I want to thank my wonderful word keepers. You are lifesavers, is what you are. You're wonderful, loving companions, friends, poets, and I thank you for all your contributions today. I hope you enjoyed everything we presented for you with love. And now you're invited to have cookies and coffee and conversation with the poets. And thank you again for coming.